Well, thank you everybody for joining us for our coronavirus webinar industry update this week. As always, please keep your lines muted and use the chat feature only for asking questions. Be sure to send them to everyone in the group so that all can see it. And with that, I'm going to pass this over to John to kick us off.
Welcome all, and thank you, Hope, for the introduction. Thanks to all of you who have tuned in today for this week's update. I wanted to remind you that this session today, mostly conducted by Melissa Bova, our VP of Government Affairs, is designed for our restaurant, hotel, and travel and tourism partners, and of course any of our allied partners as well. It is off the record and not designed for press purposes. We do a fair amount of press interviews, and we're always happy to do that to keep folks up to speed on what's going on, but this is not the intention of today's session. So if you're with the press, kindly disconnect at this time. And with that, I'll turn it over to Melissa.
Good morning, everyone. After our hiccups last week, we have a brand new setup. So I'm told that I'm coming through loud and clear. So apologies that you're going to hear my snark louder and more clear than ever before. Not too many updates today. I reserve the right to change that later. But we do have some really big federal updates that I want to go through. So let's jump right into the federal portion of today's webinar. So COVID-4 package. We have a grassroots blitz that has, if you are a member of the National Restaurant Association, you received already. It will be in our daily update today. There is a full court press from all of our national associations, ranging from tourism to hotels to restaurants as it pertains to what we're calling the COVID-4 package. This package and your engagement in this is going to be the most important engagement you have had so far, because this is broadly expected to be the last COVID package that Congress will consider this year. So everything that we need to get us over the hump and get us through to the other side of this is going to be included in this package. So engaging on this front is going to be really, really important. And some of the priorities I'm going to go through to give you a broad overview. They will all be in the email that will go out today. And it is inclusive, like I said, of our tourism partners, our restaurant partners, and our hotel partners as well. So a few things that we will be asking for as part of this recovery package. One is a restaurant recovery fund that is equal to the Restaurants Act legislation in the Senate. And I spoke about this a few weeks ago. PRLA and our national association support this legislation. It's a $120 billion relief fund that encompasses all types of grants and relief for the restaurant industry. So we are asking for the parameters of that legislation to be included in this COVID-4 package. Second to that is, and I've talked about it every week, and I'm going to talk about it again, is the P3. P3, we're looking at a few facets. One, we know that there's about $120 billion left in that fund. Priority is to allow our destination marketing organizations and other nonprofits that could not participate in the P3 to finally have access to those funds, and allowing you to be able to tap into the forgivable portion of that. As you know, before you were only eligible for the EIDL. Under the P3, it is forgivable. So that is a top priority. Second, on the P3 front, is to allow you to what we've called the round 2, which I've talked about in the past few webinars as well. Allow, if you've already tapped into the P3, to get another round of funding from the P3. So that is something that we're asking to be included. And for many of you, you are familiar, for my tourism friends, Marco Rubio has legislation that he has introduced. There are a lot of different pieces of legislation floating around that address what our priorities are, but this COVID and CARES package is going to be inclusive of all of them. So it's not going to be that they pass 25 different standalone bills. It's going to be like the last 2 recovery packages. So it's going to be one giant multi-trillion-dollar bill. So when we talk to these things, it's not saying that we don't support each senator or representative's individual piece of legislation. We're just saying that they all need to be inclusive in this larger, broad package. A few other items that we're working on. Many of you might have noticed this. If you use the P3 for items that you could normally deduct from your taxes that were tax deductible, currently they're not permitted to be tax deductible. So we're asking that to be fixed as part of the next package. Outside of that, creating more long-term loan programs, essentially trying to get all of you the cash flow that you so desperately need. Another item, and getting a little in the weeds, but I've actually gotten a few calls from some of you, is the employee retention tax credit. If you received the P3, you could not utilize the ERTC at any point in time. So we are asking for the ability to utilize the ERTC, the employee retention tax credit, when you're not using the P3. So they can't be done concurrently, but to allow you to use the ERTC when you currently don't have the P3 operating. EIDLs aren't going to go away. They are 30-year loans, so they give you more time to pay off than the P3 does. So we're asking for more support on that front. As you can see, we're asking for cash flow. That is what we know you all need right now. There are some tax credits that we're talking about, customer and employee wellness tax credits, that you would get tax credits for the investments you're making in your businesses to make them safe for your customers and your employees. And this is everybody's favorite one. These are probably my top two personally, is liability protection. This is our top priority. If we do not have liability protection, it doesn't matter how much money we can get you from the federal government. It's not going to mean a thing if you're getting sued because somebody says they got COVID from your restaurant, your hotel, or place of business. Liability protection is going to be a key part of this package. So it's so important, and while we do have legislation at the state level, we do not have an agreement there. So if we can include it in this recovery package at the federal level, I think it will give you all an opportunity to take a breath and know that the actions you are taking will protect you from a lawsuit in the future. And then this is also, as you all know, one of my personal pet peeves is business interruption insurance. And all of you that paid for business interruption insurance, and right when you needed it, your insurance agents, God bless them, said, no, thank you, good luck. We don't have to give you any funding. So they still are saying, God bless you, good luck. We don't have to give you any funding, but we're hoping that the federal government can assist in getting you some of that funding that you paid for and should have received when you were required to shut down your businesses back in March. So that is all part of the package. There are other kind of broader pieces that are part of this. And it's important to note that if we don't support other things like funding for vaccines, funding for fast tests, the 15-minute tests, God, we're 7 to 10 days in some cases for you to get results from tests. If we don't support other parameters that might not be necessarily connected to our industry, we're not going to get anywhere, because without a vaccine, without quicker testing, without more mass testing out there, we're never going to return to normal. So part of this package and part of our efforts is also to support funding for those mechanisms, because that's the only way that we're going to see any normalcy in our future. So as I mentioned, there are some other tax credits that are part of this. Tax relief for essential employees. A key part of this that we are discussing, and it's not going to go away, and I'm going to bring it up and I'm going to be honest and I'm going to cringe, so don't yell at me, is that $600 unemployment that your employees are getting right now every week. That is supposed to end at the end of this month. There is expected to be some type of parameter of some sort included in this legislation. And quite honestly, it's because what we're seeing in other states and in Pennsylvania, that we're seeing another surge in the virus, employers are being laid off and they need to be helped. So there is either going to be a slight continuation potentially of that, maybe not as much as it was before, it might be limited, or we're also encouraging them to do kind of a reverse. So your employees would get a bonus for coming off of unemployment and coming back to work. So kind of reverse the extra $600 a week they're getting right now. So those are all conversations that are happening. This grassroots measure, whether you do it through your National Tourism Organization, through the National Restaurant Association, or American Hotel and Lodging Association, I don't care, but this is our last chance, and everybody wants a cut of this. I mean, SEPTA, all the mass transit places are asking for $36 billion in bailouts. Everybody is going to tap into this. So it is so important that you engage on the grassroots. If you have relationships with your member of Congress or Senator Casey or Senator Toomey, you need to engage here. This is beyond anything we've asked you to do before, because this is our last chance. If we don't get what we need in this package, we're looking at 2021 to get any further relief. That's what Congress is telling us. So please, like I said, engage when we ask you to. And Congress is returning next week. So this is a package that we expect will be passed the first week of August. So we are operating within a tight turnaround right now. So that's my federal pitch. I had the P3 here. I think I kind of talked about how it fits into it. P3 will be a part of it. And like I said, we all know there's bills out there for business interruption insurance. We all know there's liability protection bills. We are asking for all of those facets to be included in this next recovery package. And that's going to be really key. And of course, in addition to the P3 for our tourism partners, if we don't start funding tourism, we're never going to see the tax revenue or assistance that we need in Pennsylvania. So that's going to be a key part of it as well. So that is my federal pitch this morning, more federal than I've done before. Not a ton going on in Harrisburg right now. The House was in session Monday and Tuesday of this week. They have said that they are recessed until the fall. They said that they were recessed until the fall, the third week of June. And here I am in the third week of July. But from what we're hearing, they are going to take a break until the fall. And that's going to be key because they will probably return at some point this fall if there is a federal package and they have funding to spend or funding that they can use to balance the budget. So the Senate's in session today. They really did a lot of cleanup stuff. They did some tax credits for some Marcellus Shale pieces. They basically were doing a lot of cleanup with the expectation that they will not return until there is federal funding for them to spend, or in the fall when they will all be passing bills to hopefully help them get reelected in the November election. So that is what they're doing this week. The Senate will recess today. And like I said, we don't expect them back until we have federal funds. Senate Bill 1125 is on the governor's desk, or some little page is running it up to the governor's desk right now. This is that school tax delay I talked a few weeks ago. This, as we said, we discussed the delay in municipal property taxes, your county property taxes. This is the school property tax companion to that. So it authorizes school districts for the July 1, 2020 school year to allow you to have more time to pay your school property taxes and to waive fees and fines if they are late. This is very similar to the one we did before, so it's going to be up to school districts to allow it, but it does authorize them to push back that due date. And a lot of them, I think the date actually might be today for some of them, or for the early pay for your school property taxes. But this legislation does allow them to give you more time to get that funding into the school districts. And that's pretty much the last COVID-related bill we have at the moment right now in terms of recovery. And I mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it one more time. We will be working over the summer, recognizing that PRLA will be needing our own recovery package. We are having ongoing conversations with the governor's office. Some of those grant programs that we introduced in legislation doesn't really need legislation if the governor and the legislature decide that a grant program needs to be put out there for restaurants, hotels, destination marketing organizations. So we're having those conversations right now, recognizing that you need that funding sooner than later. On top of that, like I said, when they return in the fall, I thought that we were going to have a summer and COVID would at least like take a nap, but it's not. So we do know that we're going to need more help when we return in the fall. And our committees, our PRLA Government Affairs Committee, Lodging and Tourism Committee, and Alcohol Service Committee will be developing essentially what our asks are, our own in-state of Pennsylvania recovery package that the industry is going to need. And we'll be working on that over the course of the summer. So hopefully things stay quiet, at least on the legislative front. I guess all you need is a crisis for them to not do anything bad to you. But we are going to obviously use every opportunity we have to try and push our priorities and get you all the assistance that you're going to need moving forward. Next slide, I think. Okay. John, do you want to start or do you want me to start?
I'd be happy to start thinking, Melissa. What we're seeing around the country largely is not good. As of this morning, Pennsylvania now has quarantines in place for visitors from 18 states, which means that if you are in those states and want to come back to Pennsylvania, you need to self-quarantine for 14 days. And that's based on the precipitous rise in cases, specifically throughout the South and West, but really throughout most of the United States. And California, as you know, I believe it was yesterday, shut down restaurants totally statewide, and we're seeing dialing back of restaurants throughout much of the country now, as far as, in other words, they're increasing restrictions or dialing back services that they can offer. And this is based on what we're told from the medical experts, contact tracing, that ties back to restaurants and private events and gatherings of people and things like that. So that's the broad viewpoint on what's happening around the state. We continue to monitor it, and we're in dialogue with the other states to see what they're doing. And of course, our number one focus around Pennsylvania is to try to keep the industry open in some form or fashion. And it's our number one goal, which has to do with following the guidelines. And so you've seen a lot of our focus is trying to get folks to follow the guidelines, to recognize the people that are doing it right, which is the vast majority of the industry, and as necessary to call out the bad actors, which are really causing difficulty for the rest of the industry. So that's kind of an overview of what's happening around the country and around Pennsylvania. And then, Melissa, as you need me to, I'd be happy to make any other comments, such as in Allegheny County.
Yeah, as John mentioned, and we'll get to an FYI, I think, when we get to the end of this page. In Allegheny County, as you are all aware, I've gotten this question a few times. The Allegheny County order, which was changed after our webinar last week, does go until midnight of July 24th. As of this moment, as of 11/17 on July 15th. So the current order prohibits indoor dining of any kind. It only allows for outdoor dining. You have a 3-drink limit. You have to cease service of food and beverage by 11 p.m. All of these, of course, were announced last week in Allegheny County. And like I said, it's sad because they shut everybody down completely and then they gave us outdoor dining back. And it's certainly not going to get us across the finish line. But thanks to John and his hard work and his communication with Allegheny County, we got something. And we at least got a step forward on that. I do want to clarify the event piece, and I'm not a lawyer, but I feel like I'm turning into one with all of these orders that I'm reading. In Allegheny County, the restrictions for restaurants apply to hotels. Hotels cannot have any indoor food or beverage service whatsoever. It is confusing because later in the order, they talk about indoor events are limited to 25 people, but that is essentially separate from the restaurant piece. So you're covered by it on the 25 people, but you are still not allowed to serve food and beverage indoors in Allegheny County if you are a restaurant or hotel, catering facility, any of that. There can be no indoor whatsoever. And I know that's confusing, but that's where we are. Outdoor is 50 for those private events. So move the weddings outdoors in Allegheny County for at least this weekend. And like I said, we expect an announcement and an update from Allegheny County next week in terms of where they're going to go. But I know that's been confusing, but for my hotels, that 25 person is not inclusive of food and beverage. You are subject to the same requirements as restaurants. You cannot serve food or beverage in Allegheny County. John, do you have anything to add on the Allegheny County front? You're muted.
I don't, and the only thing I would add, unless you already touched on this, we were gratified that County Executive Rich Fitzgerald and Dr. Bogan did listen to us and worked with us on the outdoor dining and as quickly as they could added that back in. And I know it only helps a percentage of the restaurants, but it helps that percentage of the restaurants. So we continue to have dialogue with them, similar to what we've had on an ongoing basis with the governor's office for the last 2 months, to try to figure out a pathway to get restaurants back in business. So that would be all I would add to that, Melissa, and thank you for the opportunity.
Yep. Philadelphia, a major, is anything major in Philadelphia? There was a big announcement yesterday pertaining to large events, and these are singular events. When I talk about these, I'm talking Broad Street runs, I'm talking shows, concerts, anything like that. They're stopping all of those events until the end of February of 2021. This is the most far-reaching ban of large events that we've actually seen across the country. Commissioner Farley was asked about this yesterday, and he essentially said, we know it takes a long time to plan these events, and we don't want to fool around with you and tell you that you might be able to do it. So they instituted that 6-month piece. So no large events through February of 2021. Good news is that the Phillies and the Eagles and sports teams are able to play, but there cannot be any fans in the stadium. So I'm not sure how that is going to work, but they are letting the sports teams continue to function in as normal an arena as they can, just without all of us screaming at them, which maybe that'd be more relaxing for them. I don't know. The large event ban is not, and I've gotten this question because it's not totally clear. It is for large public events. Like I said, think Broad Street Run, think Mummers Parade, think Holiday Parade, Thanksgiving Day Parade, think all of those. It does not impact your weddings or private events. Currently in Philadelphia, though, remember, you can't do anything indoor, and 25 is your capacity limit for outdoor. But here's hoping that will not go on for another 6 months, and that you will see an increase in those numbers. So for my hotels, my caterers, everything in Philadelphia, this order does not impact your upcoming events, but of course you do have current restrictions on you right now. Philadelphia has said that no indoor dining until August 1st. This week is really what we're calling the scary week, because it's when the 4th of July numbers are coming in. I think if Philadelphia holds steady, we will see that indoor dining move forward. It might not be to what many of you want to see, but I do think that we'll see it move forward on August 1st. But if the counts increase, we've already seen it. Commissioner Farley minces no words and does not delay to put a halt on items. So please stay in tune with Philadelphia. I expect we're going to have more announcements there and more changes moving forward. Next slide. Okay, so we put this together, and Steph is like my Vanna White today, because she's going to put links to all of these in the chat box so you have them. And this has to do with enforcement. And I'm going to talk about that, and then we're going to get to the warning for this afternoon. We need to turn people in. We need to turn in the bad actors. It's the bad actors that are hurting the rest of you. And you need to turn them in either these items, which is the state has a Department of Health complaint, BLCE, that's liquor control enforcement. Those are your licensed establishments. Philadelphia has 311 and their Office of Food Protection. Allegheny County has an online complaint form and an information center number. Allegheny County's online form is kind of terrible when I looked at it, so you might just want to call the number. But generally, the more people break the rules, and I was at an establishment in Harrisburg when I picked up my takeout on Friday night, and I don't think they're on this call, but if they are, they're warned. A lot of establishments aren't following the rules, and it's hurting the rest of you. And you need to call them out, whether it's telling your neighbor down the street they're not doing it right or turning them in, because if we don't have that increased enforcement, this is never going to go away. People in our industry are sitting down at tables, and naturally their masks are off, they're eating and drinking, and so naturally COVID is going to spread if an establishment is not ensuring social distancing. And and if you have a health department locally, I know Erie has one, I know a bunch of you do. I'm sure your health departments have their own complaint forms as well, and we can continue to harp on the masks. Please don't tell me that people don't want to wear masks or that you don't want to tell people they need to wear masks. I'm not entertaining those questions anymore. There's no wiggle room on that front, but this sucks. And that's what it is, and that's where we are. But if we don't all stick together and hold each other accountable, we're not going to get through it. And to that, John, I don't know if you want to add anything for what we're expecting in the future, or unless you want me to do it.
No, but your words about following the guidelines are really important. And it does, and if you've seen our new mask campaign, it says mask up, save lives, and save our industry. And it really is that simple. There's 3 things you have to do. You have to wear a mask, you have to social distance, and you have to recognize if there's no seat, there's no service. And whether it's at a bar or at a restaurant, if they don't have a seat, they should not be served, because that's what causes congregating, which is a big problem for us. So 3 things: masking up, proper social distancing, and no seat, no service. All of the other things you should do too, but if you do those 3 things, you're probably going to save lives, we're probably going to stop the spread, and we might keep the industry open.
Okay. Another item I'm going to put out there, because we're allowed to tell you this much. The governor is speaking this afternoon. He is making an announcement this afternoon regarding state of play in Pennsylvania. And it's safe to say further steps that are going to be taken to control the spread of COVID. So you all need to be reading our daily update when it comes out. You need to be paying attention to social media when it comes out. But please recognize that we are continuing to do everything we can. But there is going to be a press conference this afternoon with an update on Pennsylvania's state of play. And I think, John, nod your head. Is there anything else I need to say?
I think you've done fine. It's at 3:30, I believe, and all you got to do is type in the governor's website, Governor Wolf, and it'll have a link so you can watch it live if you'd like to at 3:30. And of course, the PRLA will have a concise summary of what came out of that conference in our update today, which will probably still come out about 5 o'clock.
Okay, I think we can go to the next slide, and then, John, do you want to cover this, or?
Sure, I'd be happy to.
John was going to be off the hook, but we've wrapped up early so we could take questions.
Yeah. I have to bow out a bit early, which is what Melissa's talking about. But H&L Safe Stay is a program put together by the American Hotel and Lodging Association in partnership with the partner state associations, of which Pennsylvania is the partner state hotel association. It's a terrific program that's very economical to train employees on how to ensure that if you're a hotel, you're doing the right things to help keep guests safe. There's a certification that comes along with it. It's being offered basically at cost. It's something that you should definitely look into. You can get it through our website and consider doing it if you're in the hotel business. Serve Safe Dining Commitment is a similar program for restaurants that's being offered through the National Restaurant Association Educational Foundation and through our Serve Safe, and we are the Serve Safe partner for Pennsylvania, as you know. With that, you should take a look at that as well. I think you'll find that that's really, that'll be very helpful to you. And then if you haven't already, you should subscribe to the Pennsylvania Restaurant Promise. It's simple guidelines for trying to make your businesses as safe as they can possibly be, and saying that that's important to you. It's something that is going to become increasingly important to consumers when they make dining choices, and it's going to be increasingly important to elected officials when they make decisions about our industry, as restaurants sign on to the Restaurant Promise, which Steph just put the link on for that. So please do those things. I'll let Hope handle this section.
Okay, great. So yeah, we do have some upcoming webinars from different organizations, and all the links for registering will be up on our website under the coronavirus resources. It'll have for webinars. Please take a look at these and make sure you keep yourself updated on what's coming up. There's some great ones from AHLA that happened this week, and we have them archived. We'll have them archived up there too. A quick mention too, ServSafe classes are currently going on through our association. We do have our class schedule up on our calendar where you can go to register, and you can download the schedule straight off of our website. If you have any questions there, you can give us a call. And with that, next slide. I don't know what that is. Oh, okay, I think we're on to the questions.
I will say one thing, depending on today, we might be looking into, and I just thought of this, so now I'm going to surprise John and Steph and Hope and Eric, that we might be doing another webinar on Friday or tomorrow to cover the announcements that are going to be made today. So stay tuned for that. It'll obviously be last minute, but we know that we're going to get questions, so I think it'll probably make sense for us to have a webinar. So stay tuned for that once we get it scheduled. So on that note, on that positive note, let's go through some questions. Thank you, Steph, for responding. I have not heard that any of the small business grant programs were extended, but keep in mind they're doing multiple rounds. So this is not a first come, first serve. Once the money's gone, it's gone. They're doing round one and then a round two. So I don't believe that there is an extension. Mainly because of the fact that they're going to be doing other rounds in the future on that front. And to that end, like I said, we are looking at other industry-specific grant programs as well. We're going to need that assistance more than ever. Can you please send us the proper language to use for the requests? We are going to make it so easy for you in terms of the grassroots on the national front. We will be providing links in the daily update for all of our national associations. So all you need to do is open that up and the talking points will be there. And when you send a note, all of that is going to be inclusive in the note that you send to your elected officials. And further, there's going to be, if you haven't seen it yet, like the NRA has put together kind of a really cool 2-page, this is what we're asking for piece. So you will get all of the talking points. Like I said, all of these national associations are really releasing their blueprint for recovery and what they're going to be asking for today. So all of that will be in today's daily update. Can you please detail the requirements for the scanners that are required by July 20th? All the legislation says is that within 60 days of the mixed drinks to go law taking effect, you need to get a transaction scan device, which is an ID scanner. It doesn't say that it needs to scan real IDs. It doesn't say that it has to be a handheld standalone device, and it doesn't say that it can't be an app on your phone or an attachment to your phone. So all you need to do is get a transaction scan device and use that if you have anybody that comes in that looks under the age of 35. You do have to obtain that by July 20th. And I would urge you all to obtain that because as we're seeing, mixed drinks are not going to go away. We're not going to be above 50% anytime soon. So you are going to need to continue to rely on those. And once we hit July 20th, we can't, and I've been asked this a few times, we can't delay it anymore. When they passed the bill, they actually wanted you to get the scan devices right away on day one, which would have been impossible since we had it take effect immediately. But we were able to get 60 days in there on our website, which Steph has on here. In terms of that, we do have some discounted transaction scan devices, so I urge you to take a look at those. They're as reasonably priced as possible, while understanding the last thing you need to do is spend more money on things. But for this one, it's probably a wise investment if you don't have one already. Can you confirm they requiring or recommending self-quarantine from those states? They can. We're not New York. Yay, So there is no kind of trigger or penalty action as it pertains to self-quarantine. We do have a list of states that the state has put out where they're advising you to self-quarantine. If you are from those states or you are a Pennsylvania resident returning from those states, they advise you to self-quarantine for 14 days. There is no penalty on that front though. So you need to tell your employees to do it. If you're a hotel, you should tell them that they should be quarantining for 14 days. There's no penalty or fee or fine if they don't. It's just more information they need to know that they should. And really, they were honest about it, and I'm still not quite sure how New York is doing it, but even Pennsylvania said it's unenforceable. How are you going to make sure, you know, unless you put a guard outside of where somebody's staying, that they follow the self-quarantine? So it's a recommendation, it's an urging for my restaurants out there and my hotels. It's something you might want to think about for your employees. If they're coming back from one of those states where there's a high incidence of cases, you have the ability to tell them that they need to quarantine for 14 days. Enforcement links. Let's see. I'm so grateful. Hey, Allison. So grateful that PLCB created expedited process for extension of premise, but it doesn't work for a lot of Pittsburgh venues due to narrow sidewalks and inability to use parking lane on state roads. In many cases, there might be space on a side street that could not be used for outdoor dining, but it's not contiguous. Could PRLA ask the state for an expedited temporary off-premise catering permit so we can create outdoor dining rooms near the restaurants? Last conversation with the LCB was that and this is in law, so we would have to pass a bill that it has to be contiguous, and that's where we're running into the problem. You can't kind of hop spaces. Now, what you could do is do an off-premise catering permit and use an off-premise catering permit if you have an area that's not contiguous. But obviously, as we are continuing to see COVID never go away, it's certainly worth you know, a conversation with the LCB again to see if there's any wiggle room there, and we're happy to reach out. It's that simple, comply or close. Very correct. What is state of play? I mean, generally, cases are increasing across the country. We are seeing an increase in cases in Pennsylvania. And I think there is a concern that without acknowledging that, we will just have the surge that Florida or Texas or some of those other states down south have. So I think that is where the governor and the Secretary of Health are coming from. Still seeing many, many violations without them being addressed, even after registering complaints. Further suggestions? Michael, I mean, the LCE is investigating. I'm not sure if you're turning them into the LCE. They've been pretty good. I don't know if Department of Ag has been as responsive. So you might, and like I said, they're going in and they're inspecting, and in some cases they're issuing warnings, but the governor's office did inform us today that they will be stepping up enforcement and violations, which between all 84 of us on this call, they probably should have started doing that 3 weeks ago. But I think they were trying to give people a break. They were trying to educate people. The education statewide has ended, and there will be increased enforcement. But if it's a licensee, I would encourage you to turn them into LCE, because I think that they have more boots on the ground in terms of compliance. And then, like Steph did put up, thank you, Steph, the live stream, that's at 3:30 today. Be gentle afterwards. No seat, no service. This has been a challenge, and we are working hard to police this. However, we have large open spaces for people to wait for their tables, and we've allowed them to walk up in a socially distanced line to get a drink to have while waiting. Is this allowed? Just confirming, please, and thank you. Thank you, Michelle. At 11:38 a.m. on July 15th, that is allowed. That I do not expect that to be allowed in the near future. So I would look at revisiting that policy in the short term, since we are seeing and hearing from a lot of places that it's people standing around having drinks, even if it's just while they're waiting for a table. The no seat, and I think Ben put this in here, that kind of you need to have, if you're eating or drinking, your butt needs to be in a seat. So I would continue to look at that and potentially have to change that. And you guys are all giving me a break because you know I'm going to have to do a webinar on Friday. I'm just going to pretend that's what you guys are doing. give it a few more minutes for questions. And like I said, I think this afternoon we'll be talking more. I've never been done so early. You guys really are giving me a break.
Yeah, I think we're good. Corporate room setups.
So they, it depends on if food and beverage is permitted. And the governor's office has kind of made that clear. So if you have food and beverage service, people need to be socially distanced, or tables need to be socially distanced. If you just are having a corporate meeting and there might be coffee served in the back that's self-serve. Oh yes, yeah, and I'll get to that in a second. You need to ensure people are wearing their masks when they're seated, but you don't necessarily need to put 6 feet between each individual. And I will say this, the governor's office has been informing legislators, so the announcement today is going to get leaked. I am not permitted to tell you what the announcement is going to be, but you're going to start hearing about it. Legislators love to gossip even more than you and I do, Andrew. So, yeah, it's going to get leaked. You're going to hear about it, and we will do a webinar on it. And I am here if anybody needs anything. And if you want to send me some wine or vodka, also would be much appreciated. So, yeah. Any other questions? 3:30 p.m. is the announcement today. We probably do need to do a happy hour.
I know, you better come in for shot Wednesday.
It might be Shot Wednesday today.
Yeah.
With the PRLA team.
All right, I think you should cut and run when you can, because we'll be back at this soon.
Yeah, we'll probably be seeing you guys tomorrow afternoon or Friday.
That's a great idea, Allison.
Yeah, listen, we'll look into that. That's outside of my wheelhouse, so we'll loop in some staff on that front. All right, guys, stay safe, and we will revisit this afternoon. Andrew, I need Andrew on video every time I do a webinar because it's making my day.
As always, this is recorded and we will send it out. And thank you so much for joining us today. Bye,
Thanks, everyone. Stay safe. Talk to you sooner than later.